so far. I think the way everything has been decorated and a lovely meal, and I think the students are, the Peace and Justice Club should have a round of applause for all their hard work. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Stephen Lewis Foundation. And she said Jenny and Judy. I'm Jenny and this is Judy. And we're members of OMAMA. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what we do. And I'm going to leave you to it. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the Stephen Lewis Foundation and the work it does in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm sure I don't have to tell you who Stephen Lewis is, nor about his incredible passion for social justice, and especially for those living with HIV/AIDS in Africa. The Stephen Lewis Foundation works with community-level organizations which are turning the tide of HIV/AIDS in Africa by providing care and support to women, orphans, grandmothers, and people living with HIV and AIDS. Since 2003, they have funded over 700 initiatives, partnering with 300 community-based organizations in the 15 African countries hit hardest by the pandemic. These grassroots groups are the lifeline for their communities. They provide counseling and education about HIV prevention, care and treatment, distribute food, medication and other necessities, reach the sick and vulnerable through home-based health care, help orphans and vulnerable children access education and work through their grief, and support grandmothers caring for their orphaned grandchildren. African grandmothers are central to the life of these communities. With almost no support, they have stepped forward to care for millions of children orphaned by AIDS, sometimes as many as 10 to 15 in one household. They display astonishing reserves of love, courage, and emotional resilience, even while grieving the loss of their own adult children. The AIDS pandemic has left millions of children orphaned. Without hesitation or complaint, Africa's grandmothers have stepped in to care for them. In fact, in many countries throughout southern Africa, it is estimated that between 40 and 60% of orphans live in grandmother-headed households. After burying their own children, they take on the responsibility of caring for their grieving grandchildren, often with little or no support and while coping with their own deteriorating health. Yet through all this, African grandmothers have risen to become the linchpin of survival for their families and communities. They have become activists and advocates, pushing for theirs and their grandchildren's rights and protection. They are becoming small business owners in order to earn a living for their families. Grandmothers are now recognized as community experts and agents of change by governments and international aid agencies. They nurture, feed, and put their children into school. They work to educate their grandchildren about HIV prevention, care and treatment, tend to the sick in their communities, help the recently bereaved, set up support groups, harvest the crops, and advocate for women's rights. The Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign of the Stephen Lewis Foundation was founded in Canada just 8 short years ago. Over this time, Canadians have raised an astonishing $13.5 million for African grandmothers through the Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign. Resources from the campaign are invested directly at community level with grassroots organizations that provide grandmothers and their grandchildren in their care with supports that include food, educational supplies, uniforms and school fees, medical care, HIV counseling and testing, adequate housing and bedding, counseling and support groups, home visits, and much more. Judy Henderson and I are members of OMAMA, which over the last 6 years has raised $321,000 for the Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign. We are centred in Oakville, but with members as far afoot as Toronto to the east and Grimsby to the west. We have over the years run golf tournaments, Dare to Dine events such as this one, garage sales, and 3 Stride to Turn the Tide walks with 5 other grandmother groups in Halton region. This June, we started our walk at this very school, and we're grateful for all the assistance and support we received, as well as the use of your wonderful facilities. Halton Regional Team accepted donations totaling over $68,000 this year. Here are some quotes from grandmothers. We work through life looking forward to retirement, but these women now have children to raise. There's a missing generation, and these women are holding communities together. Our mandate is to listen to African grandmothers, respect their expertise, and amplify their voices in order to promote authentic and substantive responses to the pandemic in Africa. I would like to thank you on behalf of Omama and our sister grandmothers in Africa for holding this Dare to Dine event in support of the Stephen Lewis Foundation and the wonderful work that is carried out on the ground in Africa. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Marianna, and I'm here with Caitlin and Will from the STAPJs at the Dare to Dine event. What kind of organization was put into this event?
Well, we started with the Grandmothers Organization, so it's grandmothers helping grandmothers. And what they do is they work to help grandparents in Africa who are taking care of their orphan grandchildren whose parents had died of AIDS.
And is there anything that you think people should be more aware of in regards to this?
Yes, I think many people don't realize that this is happening in Africa, that an entire generation is basically missing because of AIDS. And so hopefully, thanks to this dinner, people will now be more aware of of what is happening and of the Umar, which is the charity that helps these grandmothers that are taking care of their grandchildren.
Great, thank you. I'm Marianna, and signing off from Aquinas.nu.